Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Puck Watching STL. Man, it feels great to know that we are going to be on a back of a consistent schedule. Nick, I feel like it's been a while. I think it's been about 3 weeks since our State of the Central and Blues by the Decade draft, which is pretty competitive. And from feedback purposes, it seemed like it could go either way depending on your either you're high or low on certain players, and the modern Blues really versus the old Blues, which is where I had plus Binnington. So we were excited about doing that, and then now we're officially getting back on to a consistent schedule and starting out here with the offense preview as well as some bold takes for this current offensive squad. So before we get into that, though, is we have some check-ins to do. I feel like, Nick, it's been a while since we've heard from you, and even from me too. So what's been going on, man?
Yeah, I mean, not too much. Trying to play a little bit of golf, sharpen the game a bit, but nothing crazy. A lot of football in the last week, which has been great. It's always good to have America's sport back, but hockey's right around the corner, and couldn't be more excited about it.
Yeah, I doubt that Ben just said on our Instagram that Nick shot 8 under at X Golf. Is this truth, Nick? Or is this, what is it?
I mean, maybe I could have shot solo 8 under. Just kidding. We scrambled and we did shoot 8 under, and it was one of the best rounds I've ever played with someone. So that's something to hang the hat on today. So that's exciting.
Wow. And you played a few rounds with all three of us, and that says a lot. Well, excited that you're getting into golf, even though it's in the simulator. So
that shouldn't happen.
No, I mean, in terms of me, I'm back at campus, and if you peer over my head there, look at that sign right there. That's a Bruins sign. That's my Bruins fan roommate. I'm trying to block it out with my head as much as possible.
Didn't even notice that. We may have to discontinue.
No, I know. It's a really bad thing for the podcast. And so I'm a little upset that I had a result to this because the room that I wanted in the upstairs of the dorm was taken, which is like a little conference room for some more privacy. But unfortunately, I got to deal with this situation. Hopefully the noise isn't really affecting anything. Living with 7 other dudes right now. So, but it's been fun. Happy to be back in Boston, man. And Patriots are back up and running. And it was a really funny sight to watch the game last week with 7 other Patriots fans, basically, besides one, and how they just lost. And, there's a lot of excitement with that team, Mike Vrabel and the new squad coming in, and they did not produce to expectations, which honestly wasn't surprising to me. So it was just kind of funny watching their reactions to the game.
Lost to the Raiders, so that makes it worse. But
with Pete Carroll and Geno Smith. But anyway, and then also, if you saw, Nick, you generously put it on the Twitter, seeing me on the BC football sidelines. That's been fun. I've been trying to be, more of a journalist recently, trying to get back into the broadcast game. So that's kind of what I've been doing here at BC, and got to do it on the football field against Fordham, and it was fun. Easy win for the boys. But then last week against Michigan State, it was tough, man. I don't know if you watched that game, but if you did, then it may have been probably almost the highlight of your college football Saturday, I think, in my opinion. That game, primetime on NBC, didn't disappoint. Double overtime, unfortunately, lost it. But really, I think, fair showing from the boys, and I think we're going to be back with flying colors this week, Nick.
What did I say a couple weeks ago before you left? I said Michigan State's going to be a problem.
Well,
a problem.
They were. And you know what? It is what it is. It was at Spartan Stadium. That place is electric, it seemed like. And it was fun. I was on the radio doing the halftime show and kind of wished I was there at the same time. But just to see the environment, because it seemed awesome. So anyway, that was kind of an update for me. And then I guess there's been not really other updates in St. Louis sports, unfortunately, since Cardinals still are not very good. And City's also not very good anymore. So I would say that the St. Louis sports update, unfortunately, is very slim since the Blues, I should say, are back in action coming up in about a month here, less than a month.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Cardinals have been kind of sticking around,
Yeah, I guess
4.5 back, 6 back, 7 back, whatever. There's really no signs of life. Nolan Arenado, only God knows what he's up to right now. So yeah, things are bleak in the St. Louis sports market, and preseason hockey starts in 10 days. So we are on the horizon of something better, which is exciting.
It's getting close. And I almost feel like that the preseason Blues games may almost reach the attendance level to what the Cardinals have seen recently. I think maybe even beat it, honestly, because the season ticket holders, they're counting that in their attendance numbers. There's no way that there was like 17,000 people one of those last week games. It's very sad to see, but at the same time, shows how difficult the situation is in Cardinals Nation, unfortunately. But we are not a Cardinals podcast. But we like to talk about it as much as we can. So getting right into Blues talk, though. And again, there isn't like a whole lot to talk about, unfortunately, when it comes to overall hockey news and Blues news and stuff, anything breaking. But we wanted to give you like a breakdown of really what our thoughts are when it comes to the offense itself, when it comes to this season. And before we do that, though, wanted to give a brief shout out for the preseason as well as the training camp that starts on September 18th, which is about 8 days from now. And a couple interesting names that are going to be on the list. And we didn't really get to talking about it because it was, I think, right after we recorded about just after our Blues by the Decade draft. So Milan Lucic will be attending training camp and a professional tryout. And this guy is a league veteran. He was on the Bruins for a long time, then was on the Flames for a little bit, and then kind of left the league for a little bit, just some personal issues. And now he's back, or at least he's trying to get back into the rhythm of things on St. Louis on a tryout. So he'll be there, as well as a couple other names. Snuggerud's going to be there, Stenberg, Theo Lindstein, Adam Jaracek, Justin Carbonneau. I mean, you name the names. I mean, these are basically all the Blues' big prospects that are going to be pretty much there to show what they have and can offer for this Blues team. So thoughts on this? Thoughts on some new guys maybe getting some shots here at training camp and maybe even at some preseason games?
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. They just signed Carbonneau to the 3-year entry-level deal, which I think definitely had to be done. I'm really excited that we locked him up early. As far as he's concerned, because he's our first-round pick. He's got a lot of upside. It seems like a really, really great offensive talent. Really excited for him. He seems like he's at least a point per game player at this moment where he is in his respective league. And I would hope that would translate really well to the NHL. And he decided to forego college and he was going to go to BC, correct? Yeah.
Correct. It hurts.
And now he's chosen a different path. But I mean, if the guy's NHL ready in, a year or whatever it may be, I'm really, really excited to have him. He seems like a potential star that the Blues could really benefit from. So I'm excited. And as far as like Jaracek is concerned, I'm not really sure. He very injury prone, if I'm not mistaken. I know he's had a lot of injury bouts, but it seems like he has a really good ceiling as well. So yeah, I'm excited for training camp and seeing how all the prospects kind of play out. And as far as Lucic is concerned, I don't know. The guy hasn't played in a while. It seems like he has a lot of great experience. Obviously, if you just look at his stats, but he hasn't really produced a lot, even on the tail end of before he took his leave from the NHL. So we'll see how that pans out. But I mean, I don't know how we can't be excited about what's going on right now. It seems like the Blues are really building something special.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it'd be interesting to see how Montgomery structures where Lucic is going to be, because he's obviously going to be, if he made the team, which I think the odds are slim, but possible. I think he would be signed to a minimum, if anything, which is like 775. But to me, if they put him on the fourth line, because there's some question marks there, I think, because you look at that fourth line last year, it's not going to be the same without Foxa, but you still got Walker and Torps there, and you probably are going to supplement a guy, obviously, with Bukestad coming in, but even like a guy like Sundqvist could fit in there, just depending on how the training camps all kind of settle in. But we're going to get into all that, but I thought I would bring up the training camp and all of that. But the rest of the names are names I think you wouldn't recognize across the Blues organization. But just some names that have been in the AHL for a while and that maybe can be getting a little bit of a shot here to prove themselves. And obviously Logan Mailloux as well. That was the one I missed on the defense. That's going to be getting his. Really, I think this is kind of a tryout for him, this training camp and preseason, to see, okay, do you have a spot on a third pairing or second pairing on this team to potentially break the NHL roster consistently? And obviously you're wanting to see him in the regular season for that, I think, to see it fully. But still, I think this is a big training camp for him to see what he's got in the tank.
I mean, he's on a contract year.
Yeah.
This is his final year of his entry-level deal. So I'd be really, really shocked if he's not inserted into the lineup right off the bat. He got a little bit of action last year with the Canadiens, but not a lot. So I would assume that Mailloux is going to be a staple, probably on that third line, presumably with Tyler Tucker. So kind of a fun defensive pairing, honestly, but very much prone to mistakes as well. I've seen it from Tucker many a time, and Mailloux is definitely not immune to that either, from what I've heard from Canadian camp. So we'll see, but I'm excited. It seems like he's got a lot of upside, and if he can just sharpen up on the defensive end and limit the giveaways there, he should be a really, really great player for the Blues, but time will tell.
Yep, I agree. And also the preseason schedule for the Blues. So September 20th, so literally 2 days after they start camp, they're playing Dallas in Dallas. Then the day after, they're playing the Blue Jackets. And then about a week after, they're playing the Blackhawks and the Stars again, and the Senators and the Blackhawks being their final preseason game. So only 6 games, and for really a lot of players just to see what they got. Wouldn't be shocked if you see Carbonneau definitely in one of these games. If you see guys that you won't see much in the regular season, seeing what they have, and I'll be really interested to see how they perform, because Carbonneau being in the QMJHL, he's going to be in there again next season. That if he has a solid performance, maybe it'll be a shorter time than QMJHL. And I would have loved to see him in college, unfortunately, and I especially would have loved to see him here at BC. I know everybody at BC wanted him here, and it would have been one of the first transfers actually from the Western Hockey League into BC like that. So unfortunately we didn't get him, but kind of be interesting to see how he develops through that. But I'm really excited to see him on the ice, I can tell you that.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, you watch those highlights and you're like, oh man, this guy could be a total player for the Blues. Yeah. And you want to say like, hey, right now he could be a player for the Blues, but you got to let it play out. I know everyone's excited about it, but I'm excited just to see how he plays in that league. And maybe he gets called up. You never know. Yeah. So especially with the absence of Bolduc, I know we added players in the offseason, but there could be easily a spot for him on this roster if he does perform well. So very excited to see it. We'll see.
Yeah, I agree. And then one other thing, one guy that was not included on there that is pretty much a first round pick in the Barbashev trade that we didn't actually draft, but he was in Vegas, is Zach Dean. He was drafted 30th overall, and he is not going to be there. And he was there last year. He has, as of today, literally breaking news, that he has entered the NHL and NHLPA player assistance program. So he's out indefinitely while he receives care from the program. And, don't want to speculate too much on what his issues are, but I think it's important Blues news because the guy's only 22 and he's a young guy, probably has some NHL potential. I know that people have been a little low on him because he just hasn't performed that well when it comes to the AHL level because he's been in there for a little bit in the Blues organization. But it's an interesting thing not having him around for that to maybe try and crack the NHL lineup this year. So we're probably going to have to wait on that, unfortunately. But wishing all the best for Zach Dean as he misses this camp. Getting in, though, to the top 6 I wanted to get into first. And I want us to project the first line, first of all. And we'll use like a semi-projected first line first. And maybe if we can have any other adjustments, we'll get into that. So my projected first line is pretty much the same one that we had towards the end of last season and the playoffs. So mine has Thomas, Buchnevich, and Snuggerud. And Thomas, the marquee player on that line, as we know. He had 21 goals last season and 60 assists for 81 points. A spectacular season from the guy. You can't deny it. He's been sensational. And Buchnevich is a different story. He had a down year last year and played in less games than Thomas did and was injured for a little bit, never really found that groove. And Snuggerud is the person who I think everybody's just excited to see. So the question is, number one, Nick, is what do we need to see from them in order for them to stay together as a line like that? Do you predict them staying together? How do you evaluate that?
I mean, tough to predict just given how young Snuggerud is, but I have very high hopes. I think that line is going to stick together given what they were able to produce at the end of the season and in the playoffs against Winnipeg. I would fully expect them to stay together. I think Buch needs to have a good season in order for them to be an elite first line. I'm not as much worried about Rob at all in terms of point producing, scoring goals, having assists. Snuggerud, for some weird reason, I feel more comfortable with than Buchnevich. I don't know if that makes any sense, but obviously Buch has had his struggles while he's been on the Blues. He's had some really, really good years and has also had some down ones for sure. Yeah. So I think that first line really does hinge on how well he's able to do this year. I think he's going to be better as long as he's healthy. I think he's going to be better. I think with some continuity with Snuggerud and Rob and them staying together on that line, I think they're going to be really good. So, yeah, I think they're going to be good. I think it does hinge on Buch performing. And if he doesn't, I'm sure they'll switch it up. But I do see it sticking together for the long term this year.
I would hope so. I think that it complements, I think, very well the whole line combination. I will say though, I kind of wanted to go back if you can while I'm talking here, Nick. Look at your predictions for Buchnevich this season. I know you put him. Do you remember him off the top of your head?
I got him pulled up.
Okay.
So I have 28 goals and 40 assists for Buch.
Wow.
So he's not a point per game player.
Yeah.
Let's all taper down a little bit.
Sure.
But he is scoring goals and he's producing offensively. And I have him as a plus 15, so a net positive on the ice while he's there throughout the entire year. So I feel good about that. I think he is due for a good season. He has a lot of years left on his contract, so you got to produce when you are making that type of money and you're locked up for that long-term deal that he signed. What was that last year? So I would hope, but a little bit of aspirational projections there. But if he does do this, the Blues are going to be really good on that first line, like elite level good.
Yeah. And the question is that, little poor stretch that he had last year when it comes to his season, right? He had 21 goals and just didn't really have that value that he had probably 3 years ago. But you sign him that deal that puts him at $8 million a year. And you kind of had that contract slump, I feel like, for him this year. Like that's like the easy term for it. But you've kind of seen a decline in Booch ever since really that Perron era really kind of left St. Louis. And I hope that that was just adjusting to new line mates and trying to get your groove back. But there's a lot of pressure on Buchnevich. And from what I see, I would not be shocked if he probably stays around that 20 to 25 goal total. I'm not even sure 28 really is in his wheelhouse anymore. I wish it was, and I really hope I'm wrong. But I think the value comes from not just the goal scoring, but it comes from, having elite defense and two-way ability on that first line that complements Thomas very well, who will produce the offense for you, but also can play on the other side of the puck very well. And Snuggerud, I think, will be maybe, not to say that he's not a good defensive player, but maybe a liability per se, because he just hasn't had that full NHL experience to defend in the NHL like that and potentially get into some really difficult situations, which the first line will have that pressure on them. So if Booch doesn't become this 30-goal scorer, which he was back at a time in the Blues era, then, okay, how about you settle with that 20 to 25 goal mark, but be elite at being a two-way forward and particularly be like a Selke type player that can get that type of award. I think that's how I would evaluate Booch.
I'd be content with that as well. I mean, there's a ton of ways you could look at a successful season for him. And one is, very good offensive production. And one is, hey, he's, average in the offensive extreme there. And he's very good on the defensive side. So I'd be totally fine with that. But it is a huge year for him. There's no doubt about it. Yeah. And if he underperforms and plays like he did last year, people will be mildly upset, to say the least. So big year for him. I think he's going to be good, though.
Yeah, I agree. It is a really big year for him. I mean, he's got a long way to go on that contract. And I feel like if it's a similar season to this year and he has that pretty similar stat line, but he plays in 12 more games, so have some more point totals, hopefully get over 60, then I think Blues fans probably will be a little bit more, proud, I guess, or I think just a bit more high on him, considering that he's an $8 million player that is unfortunately not the same caliber right now. It could be totally different than Kyrou and Thomas right now as also $8 million players. So I think the biggest question on that line is Buchnevich, and then it's in Montgomery's corner to say, okay, like, do we switch this up? Do we find somebody on that second line, which we'll get into in a second, that maybe could be a better complement for Thomas and Snuggerud, that are these huge offensive capability players? But again, when I assume that, it's saying that Snuggerud is going to be this elite level player, and he had a great playoff. He had a 1 goal, 3 assists in just his 7 games that he played in the regular season, and then 2 goals and 2 in the playoffs. But the question is that what's he going to do with 82 games or however many he can play? And is he going to be this Calder Trophy favorite that I think a lot of people have as their predictions, especially Blues fans? But I think it's possible. I really do. And the last one to do it was Barrett Jackman, as we said in one of our previous episodes. And can he be the first one since him to do that? I think he can. I think he has the capability. But it's just a matter, I think, of finding those consistent line mates for him that can feed him pucks and generate him those chances.
He's on the right line. So I think he should be able to do it. He's got people around him to help him become that player. And I think he's right there. And if what we saw last year was any, inclination of what he's going to be this year, I think we're on a really, really good path with Snuggerud. So I feel really good about him. I'm not going to mince words. I really do.
So what's his ceiling next year for you in terms of some bold take that you have for him? Because I think I'm reference your Twitter on this but I'll go on my own. And I think that he can score I'd say he can score probably 25 goals this year and have 30 assists.
That's what I said.
Okay,
That's
is
what
that
I said.
about what you said?
Yeah,
Okay.
I said 25 goals. If he scores 25 goals, I think we all got to throw our hands up and say, hey, we won this one.
Yeah.
It was a great pick, and we are in for a lot of great years with Jimmy Snuggerud.
Yeah, but I think there's a scenario too where he'll score 15. I think his low is 15. I really do. I think there's a range between 15 and 25 where he has. And if it's 15, I still think it's good. He's still super young. He's so young and has so much more potential than that. And you saw, like, I think it's a very similar development than like what you can see with Bolduc last year, who's not going to be on this team. And I think it's a big question to ask when it comes to the bottom six. Okay, where's your bottom six going to stand now, absent one forward? But before we do that, other second line and part of the top six. So this could be different as well. And this is a question mark that I think will be answered a little bit in the preseason and training camp. So right now, the projected that I have is Pius Suter, Holloway, and Kyrou. And again, Suter, reminder, 25 goals, 21 assists. And not the best in the faceoff circle, though. About a 43% faceoff percentage and averaged about 17 minutes on the ice last year. Holloway, very good from him last year. He had those 26 goals and was a standout player, especially with 6 power play goals, which was huge for the Blues and getting that special teams going. And Kyrou is Kyrou, another 35-plus goal season for the guy. So the question I think on that line is who's going to be your consistent center? Because I could have easily said Schenn on that line because of the success that they had last season with him. That line was buzzing all year long, especially towards the latter end. And that line stayed together for a long time. Does it change with Pius Suter in the lineup?
I think that there will be rotation on that line. I could easily see Monty swapping both of them out on every couple weeks or whatever, depending on the production of the line. Excuse me. So I could see it. I would expect Suter to probably start in that position, but wouldn't be surprised to see Schenn be inserted, just given the year that they had together last year with Kyrou, Schenn, and Holloway. They had a really, really good year together, all three of them.
Yeah.
So I think Suter had a really, really good year last year. Doesn't mean that whole body of work from him necessarily implies that he should be that staple second line center.
Right.
But he did have a good year. And if he can keep producing at that rate, then I would imagine he'll be that guy on the second line center squad. But if not, then Schenn will definitely be inserted. And they make changes to the lineup all the time. And Monty doesn't hesitate to do it, especially if they're in a lull, if you will. So I wouldn't be surprised, and we'll see how it plays out. But really interested to see if Schenn or him. I could see it going either way, honestly, just depending on how training camp goes.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned it. I think it's going to really come down to, I think they're both really good players, and I think they're very similar, except I think Suter's obviously younger. But I see a scenario where Suter probably doesn't get to 25 goals this year. I just don't see it happening. I hope I'm totally wrong, but I just don't see it where you're coming from a very different system in Vancouver, and now you work your way in here with pretty similar responsibilities. He was a pretty big player for Vancouver last year, but to me, it's hard to get a 25 goal season, and now you're into this entirely different system, and so it's probably going to. So I don't see that. And then second, the faceoffs, 52% for Schenn versus 42-ish for Suter. And so that's a basically 10% difference. And I think that can probably define a hockey game in all cases, I think. In some cases, I should say. Because, yeah, I mean, normally you won't associate with winning a hockey game with, win faceoffs like that. It's very important. But the Blues, I thought, were very good at the faceoff circle last year. And if they don't have that similar production again, then maybe the offense could be swayed either way, where they could maybe either get a little bit better with better faceoff percentage or a little worse, depending on how it goes. So I think that may be another stat to where could decide Shen and Suter on that second line.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I do think that Suter could be better this year potentially. This is a big if,
Mm,
but he could be better just because he's around really, really, really good players, especially in the offensive side.
yeah.
Like if you're around Jordan Kyrou and Dylan Holloway, points are going to come. Like they will. Now, if he's scoring 25 goals a season, I guess that's a little bit different story.
Yeah.
But he easily could match his point total from last year. I would see that easily, just
Yeah.
in the assist category. But I don't know if he's going to score 25 goals, but I am very excited to see him potentially on that second line just to play with those guys.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge privilege for anyone that would walk into a different organization and be able to play on a line with Jordan Kyrou and Dylan Holloway. Like that's a huge bonus for people joining St. Louis right now. And I think Suter's going to benefit very heavily from that if he does arrive on that line come the first game of the year.
Yeah, and then the question becomes, right, you're surrounded by some great offensive talent, and I think you can guarantee that Kyrou will pretty much always be in that 30-goal range, 35-goal range, actually. And with all of those games played, because he played all 82 last year, which was great, and we needed that. But the question is for Holloway, is that he was an elite offensive player for this team last year. Anybody can say it, and they can argue with me as much as they can, but I don't think that anybody would be crazy enough to say that. But can we expect a 63-point season that would have that 26 goals last year? Can he be a 30-goal scorer next year? I don't know. I would sure hope so, but if it's consistent to where he has like that 23 to 28 goal range, then I think that's a perfect type of player that the Blues need at that second line. I don't think you need a 30-goal scorer, and of course you would love it, but the question is, does Holloway have that potential with, even though he missed the last, I think, 8 games of the season last year? So where do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, I see it. I see it similarly to you. He had 26 goals, 37 assists, and he was a plus 21 overall by the end of the year. I don't think he's going to be taking a step back, but 63 points in pretty much the first season that you really played in the NHL, where you're playing every game or expected to play every game, and you're on the second line. Like it was a huge jump for him, and he made it seamlessly.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to be really, really good. And he's also a good two-way player. Like the guy gets back. He's a hustle guy. He's also extremely fast on the ice. So I love Holloway's game. I like it even more than Kyrou's game. And I don't imagine him taking a step back. And I would be surprised if he scores less than 23 goals. Like your lower end of the range on 23, I'd be surprised if it's less than that. Like extremely surprised. And I think his assist numbers are only going to go up. And I do think that centerpiece and what we were talking about before was Suter or Schenn, that will play a part for sure. But I think he's good enough to play a two-way game where he's going to get his points regardless, just because he's a huge effort guy on top of him already being a really good offensive player too. So I don't see him taking a step back at all. And I expect the same from Kyrou as well.
Yeah, I agree. And then one more with Kyrou. And again, we had this discussion even before we had the podcast last year, is can Kyrou, he's been so close to that 40 goal mark. Is it possible for him to reach that number this year? Because, and the only reason why I'd say that it's maybe more possible than ever this season is because that he has some permanence this year if that Suter/Schenn center issue is figured out. I think he has that potential to be that 40-goal scorer this season.
I do too. I think if it's any year for Jordan Kyrou for a 40-goal season, it is probably this year and many to come, hopefully. Yeah. But I think it is this year. I think that the centerpiece does definitely hinge on that. I think a bit, like if Schenn and it takes a step back and with his age, and then Suter doesn't necessarily produce like you'd want, then maybe I could still see a similar season, which I would gladly take, honestly. But I think we'll see. But I really do think this should be his year for a 40 goal season, and it would make life pretty easy on the Blues if Jordan Kyrou scores 40 goals on the second line of very, very, very elite, awesome two lines of your team, which is not a luxury that everyone has. So I think Kyrou is destined for a big year. I just hope for Kyrou. It's never really been about the regular season as much as it's been, what are you going to do after that? So I'm assuming the Blues are going to make the playoffs, and Kyrou's just got to take a step up after that. But I think his regular season is going to be great, barring any injury or anything that happens on that.
Yeah. No, the 40-goal season hangs on the fact that he stays healthy the whole year. I think that's the easy case for it. And if he does, I really do see it happening, and I don't think I've really believed it as much as I did right now when it comes to the state of this Blues team for sure. So moving down to the bottom six, projected right now. And then I kind of forgot about this when I was prepping this. So it may look the most different, I think. So Neighbors, we're going to say, is probably the most permanent one on that line. And he's the creme de la creme of third line wingers. Neighbors, 22 goals, 24 assists last year, makes his living in front of the net. And I don't expect him to do any less than that this season. If he has a 25-goal season again like he had 2 years ago, would not be shocked, and honestly could probably see it happening this year, especially if he has a guy like Schenn, who is a lot better of a center than Oscar Sundqvist is. And that's just the truth. And no offense against Sonny. We love Sonny. But the question, though, becomes is who's going to be that third wing or that third player on that line on the wing. It can be of three different players. Matthew Joseph, who played 60 games for the Blues last season and had 14 points, 4 goals, 10 assists. It can be Texier, who had more goals and a little bit less in the point category and didn't play as many games. Or it can be Oscar Sundqvist, who is not really a natural winger, is more of a center, and got you 20 points last season. So if I was a betting man, I would say that Matthew Joseph supplements into that winger position. And I think it'll supplement a lot between Texier and him. I really don't see Sundqvist on the wing. I just don't think that's where he is mainly. I think he thrives more in the middle. But I think the big question is depending on where Joseph is and where Texier is, do you want a more of a, sniper type guy in Texier, or do you want a more versatile player like Joseph who can defend a little better, maybe not as great in the skills category as, a guy like Texier would be? But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I think it's going to be pretty much more of the same as last year. I would expect some scratches from Joseph and some scratches from Texier. I would imagine that Texier is going to play a little bit more than he played last year, just due to, I think, the new additions and Joseph I don't know. Joseph is a good two-way player, which is not something I don't think Texier could really say necessarily. But if Texier can take a little bit of a step up, and he's pretty young too, he could take a little bit of a step up. I think he will assume a tad bigger of a role, but time will tell. Again, I don't see Joseph going away. I'd see him probably playing a small majority more than Texier, but I think Texier is gonna play a little bit more, and that should contribute a little bit better on the offensive side, I would say.
Yeah. And I think what an interesting thing to note here, I put hits as well when I was going on their stats, but Neighbors had 173 last season, Schenn had 194, and Joseph had 121, and Sundqvist and Texier didn't really have any notable numbers when it comes to hits. So if you put Joseph in there consistently, then it's almost like that you have a third and fourth line that are basically a very similar identity, with one being more offensively talented than the other, but they can lay the body, man. And I think it could really make the Blues a scary team on the bottom six, knowing that you guys are going to, this team, whatever team we're playing is going to be bulldozed when you get to the bottom six of that lineup. Like, you may have to face the offensive capabilities of that top six, but then once you go down to that third line, you still get some offensive prowess, but you're going to be hit. And if Montgomery goes with that, I would love it. Not to say that you're going to need different things each different game, depending on how it is. But, man, that'd be a fun third line to watch if those hit totals stay pretty similar to next season.
I mean, then you go to the fourth line.
If
the third and fourth line are hitting like you're insinuating there, that's a tough team to match up against, no doubt. So I'm for that. I want that to happen. I want to be as physical as possible. There's no doubt that gives teams some things to think about when they're matching up against the Blues. But I also want, some offense, and I'm not exactly sure there would be a ton of offense produced from Schenn, Neighbors, and Joseph. But if you insert Texier, I do think more offensive production would probably come as a result. So I think that's a tough call. When I think it just depends on the matchup, and that's why I really do think it's going to be a gradual rotation between the two of them, just like it kind of was last year. So I think we'll see. I think it should be a really fun line to watch because I think they could be pretty good, and they could be good in multiple facets, just depending on who they bring out on that winger spot between Joseph and Texier.
Yeah, I think for me, though, and I think of Sundqvist last year. That was that marquee third line center for the Blues. He was good. He did his job, but he just wasn't that offensive guy. And I think then you look at this season and you have Neighbors and Schenn, who are a lot more skilled guys. And then you have Joseph supplementing in there that could just be a depth guy there. I think it kind of balances out despite you having Bolduc last year and Neighbors. Now you basically are saying, okay, we'll have Schenn and Neighbors and we'll have similar offensive results. That may be a gamble, but I think it could work, I think. And if Schenn has a better year, which I don't really see it happening, I think if he hits 20 next season, then I think that's a ceiling for him. But really, it's his leadership and it's his ability to hit guys and be just completely dominant when it comes to all aspects of the game. So I'm totally with that as a huge thing for the Blues, having that third line pairing there. But again, we'll see. I'm just speculating. So,
I mean, if Jake and Schenn can have 20 goal seasons each,
yeah, then it'd be
I'm
perfect.
pretty sure that's going to be an awesome third line.
Yeah.
So that's very speculative, and I'm not really sure that's going to happen, but I would love for that to happen. Jake Neighbors has scored 20 goals or more in the last 2 years. So if that's the case, I'm super happy about it. But Schenn, 20 goals or more on the third line, I think it's a little bit tougher to imagine, but we'll see.
No, that's a good point. It is a good point. And I think it's definitely an issue because you're playing with Holloway and Kyrou versus playing with Neighbors and Joseph or Neighbors and Texier. It just probably won't be the same dynamic, and you're probably right about that. But so interesting point there, and we'll have to take it depending on how the season goes with them. And so, yeah, very interesting stuff with that third line. I think maybe the biggest question mark this season when it comes to who's going to be in which positions there. So then finally with the fourth line, Bjugstad, Walker, and Torps. That's my projected, and I think it's pretty easy to say that that's probably going to be the one next season. And I think their keys are pretty much be that same identity as you were last season. So that you're just going to be going for bodies. You're going to be searching for ways to get physical in any aspect of the game and be pretty good when it comes to defense. And the question is, though, can Bjugstad stay healthy? Because last season he missed 16 games. He's only played 82 games once in his career. So maybe that's not a bad thing because then you have a depth guy like Sundqvist that can supplement in that fourth line, but it won't give you the same results, I think, when it comes to physicality as it would be with Bjugstad, who had 104 hits last season, 281 for Walker, 223 for Torpchenko. And those are all Walker in the top 7. I think Torps in the top 16 or something like that. So I think it's that same identity that needs to happen from that fourth.
Yeah, that fourth line could be awesome.
Yeah.
In terms of physicality, that excites me a lot. Bukestad's had a lot of hits throughout his career. He's a big body. He's a little bit older, but still, I'm sure he can, knock it around if you will. And I don't think Walker's going to take a step back. He's going to play his game. He's been playing his game for the last few years since he's been on the Blues. So I think that line is going to be a really good staple and consistent for the Blues. I'm sure there'll be a little bit of movement with Bukestad. I'm not exactly sure, but Torp is going to bring his same game. I think Torp's going to score more goals this year. I think he got a little bit unlucky and had some finishing woes last year, but I think he can easily score 12 goals a year, if not more than that. And it's actually really showcased some really good offensive talent year in and year out since he's joined the Blues. And I think he's going to be better in that regard. And I think Walker as well, he can score. He's not going to be a 20 goal scorer, but I think that line can produce, and I think they're going to hit a lot, and their forecheck's going to be insane, just like it was in the playoffs last year. And I hope they can bring it during the regular season this year. But I really do like that line. That's personally, besides that first line, I think that is my favorite line just due to the consistency of the line and the physicality of it as well.
Yeah. So say Walker has, pretty much like 8 goals like he did this season. Say Bukestad has a similar number, 8, and then Torps we'll split the middle and say that since he had 14 goals in 2 years ago, and we'll split the middle. I think that he can probably get to 10 this year. We'll say that's not quite the middle, but I think if he can get to 10, then you're looking at 26 goals from your fourth line, which is a big jump from last season. I think it could be really good for the Blues offensively. And then when you look at the hits, here's my prediction. I think Walker is going to beat his hit total from last season. And I think he's on a mission for that. And because when you look at that guy, you would not expect him to be the feisty guy that he is. He's small, but he's fast. But you wouldn't think of that guy to really throw the body like he does, but he's insane. And he just does whatever it takes. And I think he's on a mission to do it again this year, and I think maybe even do more. But again, there was guys that were in the 300s last year pretty easily. I think Walker's going to be shooting for that this season, Nick.
I would love that. I don't understand how that guy doesn't get hurt more. Maybe he just plays through it. I don't understand how someone that little can hit so many people every single game, especially in the playoffs. He had so many hits in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
But I hope more of the same, and if not, a little bit more from Walker. And he knows his game. He knows exactly what he's out there to do. So I'd be surprised if he deviates from that.
Yep, I agree. And then finally, I think the questions remain here. As we talked a little bit about it when it comes to prospect camp, but I wanted to show this briefly, and I hope this gets people excited. But for the people who are watching this on my screen here, but basically, if I can get it pulled up, there we go. So this is Dvorsky, downtown St. Louis, with Paul Stastny and Peter Stastny. I'm just saying, I think that's a really good sign right there. I don't really know how else to really put that, but he's embracing the culture, man. And, didn't really get what we wanted to see from him enough, I think, last season. He was a very, very small sample size, but I think we're going to see a lot of him depending on how the injuries all pile up this season. But I think he's going to get chances either way.
He'll get chances. I'd be really, really shocked if he does not sniff the lineup this year. I would imagine him at least playing in like 30 games or more this year. And I don't even know if you have to have an injury there. I think there'll be some healthy scratches depending on the play of the Blues. And I would love to see a little bit more of Dvorsky, see what he can do. He's been in the lower leagues for a little bit. He got some action last year, looked fine, looked good. And I really do think he can be a good center in the NHL. But, time will tell. But I would be shocked to not see more of Dalibor Dvorsky this year versus what we've seen previously.
Yeah, I think it's his time. He's got to seize the moment. And I think he probably starts out in the AHL. I think maybe this season. Not sure if he really cracks the NHL lineup this year. Again, I could be totally wrong, but I I think I want to see a little bit more of him for development purposes. And if he's shining in the AHL with the Thunderbirds, then perfect. Get him up here ASAP and see how he works with this team. And the question is, though, is that where would you put him? And then it becomes a little difficult because, like, well, maybe you put him on the third line with Shen and Neighbors. That could help. But those aren't your offensive guys that maybe are going to help him develop as great as you'd like. Maybe you move guys from second or first or whatever and flip around. But I think that'll be a big project to see what happens this season.
Agreed. I think there will be some flip-flopping with the lineup. It's never that straightforward and kind of what we're painting it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him on the second or third or fourth line and just see how the lines kind of take root. But at the same time, like they'll switch mid-game and put Dvorsky up in the second line for a brief time in like the first or second period, third period. Yeah. And they'll go from there. And I think he should get his shot with better players and not put him in a place where he doesn't feel like he can produce.
Right. I agree. And then when it comes to the rest of the prospects, you look at Carbonneau, who we talked about a little bit, full season in the QMJHL, I think, for him. And if he's around that 40-goal mark, which he was last season, he had 46 goals, 43 assists in 62 games last season. He was incredible. And if you have similar numbers to that, then I think he'll be a quick time in the minors for him. I think maybe a year, maybe even a half a year in the AHL after this season to potentially kind of spring the NHL pretty quickly. But Stenberg and Lindstein, for me, it's those guys that are going to have to see for this AHL season. I think Lindstein didn't play much in the AHL last year, but he's slated to be in there for most of it this year. And then Stenberg's played about 38 games, had 5 goals and 12 assists in 38 games. So I would love to see where Stenberg maybe, and if he has a great season, then I wouldn't be shocked if we would maybe see him at some point later down the road this season, which could be interesting.
I mean, I think most fans would want to see Stenberg or Lindstein. I think a lot of people have high hopes for the both of them. I think the defensive rotation is we're older, I mean, with the exception of Tucker and Mailloux and Broberg, Falk, Parayko, and Fowler are very much seasoned veterans. You're not going to rip and replace them.
Right.
So I would imagine it would have to be those other three, but I don't really want to see Mailloux necessarily be taken down. Like, you want to give him his reps. He's on a contract year, like I said before. High hopes for him. Tucker, I could maybe see being ripped out. I don't know. It just depends. Like, Broberg's not going to be sent down or anything like that, so that won't happen. Yeah. But I would love to see them. I don't really know the place or the time that would happen this year. Yeah. But could be wrong. I would love to see him regardless.
Yeah. And actually, I think we got a little ahead of ourselves. I was looking at some defensemen, and we're going to be saving that for our next preview, which is going to be all about the defense, and which are less players to cover. But the rest of them are Lindstein, Jarachek, and Colin Ralph, who transferred from St. Cloud State this year now to Michigan State. So, again, we'll get into that in our next preview. But this about kind of wraps it up. We've given some of our bold takes for the season, and frankly, I think our biggest conclusion is that we're super psyched for this offense this year. And I think the most excited I've been in a long time as a Blues fan. And even the years in 22 when we made the playoffs, like, that was just an older squad that had the experience and was capable of making the playoffs like they did. But this season is so different because you have a big mix of it now. And now you have some more experienced guys, but you mainly have younger guys that are anxious to prove themselves and anxious to be permanent in the starting lineup. So going to be super fun, Nick. I'm so excited to see this, and especially I'm going to be hopefully watching some pregame action or preseason action just to see kind of the state of all these younger guys and how they can fit into this roster. So excited.
Totally agree. They've created a really good environment where there is room for younger players, prospects to step up and solidify their role. And we're going to see that pretty early on in the year and see how people perform. And I mean, we're literally knocking on the door. We're less than a month away from the regular season, and we're 10 days away now from the preseason. So we're right here. Football just started. All of a sudden, hockey's knocking at the door. So it's an exciting time in the world of sports, and especially for St. Louis Blues fans everywhere.
Yep, I agree. And St. Louis sports fans, because they need something to cheer on that can hopefully win better results. Hopefully. We're praying for it. But this about wraps it up. So we'll see you next time, next week at some point, because, again, we're on that consistent schedule. We're back. Hopefully the real tease it enough. And also next week may not be the defensive preview. It may be somebody a bit better. We're not going to reveal his name right now, but I'll tell you that this guy is a Blues legend, Hall of Famer, and frankly an NHL legend that we're going to be happy to welcome to the show next week. And we're so excited for that and to bring you some more interview content since it's been a little bit since that. So we're excited. We'll see you then. Until then, have a great rest of the week and the weekend. We'll catch you very soon.
See you guys.